Hello and welcome to this session. So in this session we're going to be looking at how we can hack into something, and specifically how we can steal passwords in order to gain access to other people's accounts or other people's devices. And as we all know, data is the most important asset to a business or to an individual, which means that if that data was distorted, if it was changed or deleted, then it would have tremendous effects on either an individual or a company say so. So welcome to this session. So let's talk about ways of how you can steal passwords. And if you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you kindly do, so that you're updated each time I upload a new video. If you have any comments or any critics, kindly comment on the comment section below, and let's get into hacking into something. Let's steal passwords, right? So it's very easy. The first thing you can do is steal the device, either the computer, the phone, the tablet. It could already be logged in, and the possibilities are that there could not be any passwords either on the device or on some of these accounts that one might have on this device. Okay. The second thing you can do is ask the target to give you the password himself or herself, and most people will give it to you. If you approach someone and you tell them that you need to use the device and they give you the password, they are going to genuinely give it to you, not knowing the amount of damage that one could cause by just giving out passwords. Another thing you could do is join breach forums. This is where we get leaked databases, and these databases contains usernames and passwords to different accounts that have been breached before. Facebook has been breached, and other social media platforms have been breached. Let's talk of Yahoo. These were technologies that were being used way before, or social media accounts that were being used before passwords became a critical thing. So in several hacks or several breaches, most of the passwords and usernames and passwords have been breached, and they are openly given out either on the dark web, where somebody will sell it to you, or in breach forums where they are free of these word lists that contains usernames and passwords. So make sure you have checked the website. Have you been pwned? Enter your email address there and see if your password has been leaked throughout the years. Now, people tend to reuse a lot of passwords, and they reuse their passwords in multiple accounts. For example, your Facebook account, the password to the Facebook account is the password to your X account, which was formerly Twitter. So people tend to reuse passwords for different reasons. I don't know why you do that, but a lot of people do, and it would work for most people, reusing the same passwords for multiple accounts. Now, if you're not able to reuse these passwords, then you can use a brute force attack, and so you use tools in Kali Linux, for example Hydra and Burp Suite, and this will help you to brute force or enter as many possibilities of those passwords as possible until the right password is cracked. And this is amazingly simple, and people should be aware of this, so that whenever you're creating your passwords, make sure you create a strong password, 16 characters in length. Make sure it's a alphanumeric. Make sure you add some emojis inside there, and the best way to do this is using a password manager. Password manager will help you manage all your passwords for you. Now, in case the brute force attack doesn't work, then since you got access to this person's device, then you can steal their password hashes. These are stored locally on Windows /system32/configs/some. It's usually a Word document containing hashed passwords. If you clean the SAM document, you're going to get the hash of the password, and using tools like John the Ripper in Kali Linux, you can crack the password to that specific account. So it would be a very easy way to get into someone's account, steal their passwords which are stored locally on your system, either the one securing your device or accounts, especially if you're using Google Chrome. Google Chrome tends to store a lot of passwords in local machines, and if someone got access to the password hashes, then it would be very easy for them to use John the Ripper in Kali Linux to crack these passwords. Now, another way that you could have access to accounts, or you could steal passwords, is gain admin access. Suppose you targeted the admin of a certain company. You'd be able to see all the usernames, all the passwords that the accounts have, and you'd be able to change according to your will as the hacker or as the adversary here. Now, if those don't work, you can manipulate the APIs that control these systems or websites. Since most of them come in websites. Whenever you're logging into an account, you'll have to log in through a web page, and you can manipulate the web page, the login web page, using SQL injection. So SQL stands for Standard Query Language, and this is basically the language that is used to format databases, create databases, add records, delete records. So you could trick the API, instead of just getting one record, it could give you multiple records, or you could gain access to the login web page to another person's account using SQL injection. And this is quite scary. If you haven't watched SQL injection videos, kindly do so, and I'll make sure to just do one so that you are aware of the danger of SQL injections. Now, another way that you could gain access to a network is gain access to the network itself or the database. Okay, you could go find a router, find the version, or gain access to that network. That is just by joining the network, ping, or find the default gateway, trace route, that is, find the default gateway of that specific network, find out the version of software that it's running. Most of these devices that are sold nowadays usually run on a small Linux system called OpenWRT. And these are small Linux, not even 10 megabits in size, but it's what running most of these routers, switches, especially if you're not buying them from mainstream networking vendors. This is what you're going to be getting as your operating system. Now, you could find a vulnerability in these routers, and after finding a vulnerability, you can attack the network or the database, or just use a password to gain access to the network. Okay, and that is a very scary way. Imagine someone just coming into your network and finding a vulnerability in one of your routers, either since you have not been updating it, or you have not been checking in on whoever is joining your network, and be able to find a vulnerability or use a password either gained by previous methods that we have talked about earlier, and they're able to gain access to your network. That could be very scary. Now, let's talk about Shodan. Shodan is a web search engine for IT infrastructure, mainly embedded devices. And when I'm talking about embedded devices, I'm talking about Internet of Things, IoT cameras. We're talking about cameras. We could talk about sensors, other IoT devices, your smart fridge, your smart devices in your home, Alexa, talk of Siri, all those things. And these things, Shodan is a web search engine that enables you to search for devices that have been deliberately or unknowingly left out on the public internet to be streaming their data to the public internet, and they can be searched by anyone around the world, anyone. And what I mean when I say anyone, I mean just anyone. You just go to that web search engine and search for devices. All you need is an IP address, or you could just search cameras, and you just scroll through, and possibly you could come across whatever you are looking for in Shodan. So Shodan is one way to find vulnerabilities when it comes to networks. Now, another way that you could gain access to another person's network or systems is you could comb through the code that is written by these people. If it is a system or an app that you know has potential value to you as a hacker, then you could comb through the code of that specific app, let's say from GitHub, and you could find hard-coded passwords in there. The developer, with the intention of just reminding himself whenever they're going to deploy this system or application, they're going to put the passwords, the admin passwords, or say other passwords, hard-coded passwords in the code. So if you come through the code, then the possibility of finding this password is very high at times. Now, we have talked about inspecting the app that is viewing the source code. You could exploit APIs, as we talked earlier, to give you more information than you need to. And a very good tool for exploiting APIs is Burp Suite. Burp Suite helps you to capture the request before you send it to the server. So if you're sending a request to access data on, let's say, David, then Burp Suite is going to capture that request, and then you're able to send it afterwards. And before sending it, you could modify it to give other details. Let's say Jane. There's a lot that you can do with the APIs to manipulate them to give you a lot of data or information that you don't necessarily need to have access to. Another way that you could do this is by gaining access to a physical data center. Some sort of pen test skills, where you walk into a data center, find ways to get into a data center, and you could plug in a rubber ducky or a keylogger so that you are able to gain access to this data center remotely. Now, by gaining access to a physical data center, you could, as we said earlier, you could deploy a keylogger, and these are able to create reverse shells. Let's say, for example, the tool called Mimikatz or Responder, you're able to create a reverse shell that you can be able to access later when you're not physically in the data center, or you're able to listen into connections to that specific data center when you are remote or when you are away from that specific data center. Another way that you could hack into something is by using the Evil Twin attack, by using a Wi-Fi pineapple. And this way you de-authenticate people from the legit access points. A Wi-Fi pineapple has the ability to capture packets. It has packet injection mode, that is, you're able to change the packets that are in that specific access point. And you also have a monitor mode, which means capturing of other access points within your area, and by using this attack you can easily de-authenticate people from their legit networks, and you get them to join your network. And before joining your network, they're going to provide you, of course, with their passwords, their usernames, and you can store this for later use. So that is another way that one could get into another person's device or system. Another way that you could do this is by using insiders. You could plant somebody inside a company to be giving you access to information. If not a person working in that company, then you could use family and friends, because they are usually going to post anyhowly, okay, and you cannot stop them from posting, okay. So another way to be completely vulnerable in a company is by using insiders, and they're going to give you information freely for a certain agreement or an agreement that you reach before you're able to put them inside that specific company. And when you're talking about governments, what they do, what the term they use is the seeding operation, and this is where you plant somebody either in another state or in another company to be providing information for you. You have watched these movies, and you've heard something we call rats, CIA rats. Okay, these are people who are able to give intelligence to CIA agents so that they're able to have an advantage over a certain state or a certain company. Another thing you could do is set up surveillance systems. This could be using of trolls, where you have people following a person all the time. You could hack into their phone, enable the microphone, the camera, and you're basically able to get information from this person unknowingly. Other people will come into your house, they plant bugs into your hotel rooms. They are going to plant bugs so that they're able to listen into whatever conversations you're having, and this could be very dangerous. So I would advise that if you're a person of a very high interest to a certain company, then what you should do when you're going somewhere, always make sure you scan your room for these types of devices, bugs, and you'll always find them if you are of a certain value when it comes to certain companies or states. Now, we have talked about turning on microphones. Another trick you could use is using thermal cameras. This is whereby you're going to use a thermal camera to zoom in into a person or to watch someone and see whatever keys they press in, either to get into somewhere or the thermal cameras will give you everything, anything you need. As long as it's producing heat, then you're going to differentiate, and it's going to give you a lot of information that you would otherwise not have if you're using the normal cameras. Another way to do this is by sending phishing links. This is where I create a malware, I put it in a link, and send it to someone using a phishing link, and I'll make that link or that specific phishing email or link to be very real, to look very real, since it's not real. And if this person's the target, if they click on that link, then you could deploy malware to their devices, to their systems, and this could be very destructive. A lot of ransomware, and when I'm talking about ransomware, is a malware that has been sent to you. It locks up your systems, and basically what these people ask for is for money so that they're able to release the encryption keys to your data so that you're able to continue their day-to-day operations. And a lot of ransomware has been spread through phishing links. So we should be very cautious about the emails we are receiving, whatever links we are looking at, or whatever. Another way we could do this is by using a keylogger. We talked about a keylogger earlier, and what basically a keylogger does is it's able to collect keystrokes. Whenever you type something on your keyboard, either on your phone or your tablet or your laptop or your PC at work, the keys on the keyboard, when pressed, they trigger some sort of electric charge, and the computer or your device is able to interpret that to a certain value. Now what keyloggers do, they're able to collect these charges, and they can tell you whatever keys were pressed, and you don't necessarily have to be there. So keyloggers come in handy. They're able to collect keystrokes from your target, and you're able to get whatever this person is doing with their devices or with their systems. Another way you could do this is by shoulder surfing. This could be underrated, but it is very efficient, though it needs a lot of skills and a lot of concentration so that you're able to capture whatever your target is doing. And what I mean by shoulder surfing is just going behind someone and trying to look over their phone or their device to see whatever they are doing. And some people have photographic minds, believe me. They're able to get whatever you're doing with your phone. If it is your password, they're able to see whatever password you keyed in, and later they can steal that device and just log in. Or if it is an account that you can log in through a web page, then they are going to just go and try out the password, and by luck, if you have not changed the password, then they are going to get into your specific account, and they're able to delete records, change records, or even completely delete these records. Another thing we could do is by setting up fake websites. Okay, and this is very common. We have even seen fake websites that pretend to be nation state websites. Okay, for example, just a few weeks ago, there was a fake UK website. Okay, so setting up fake websites is also a very efficient way of collecting user information and user data. Now, another way we could do this is by using phishing links. And when we're talking about phishing links, we are talking about voice phishing. When we are sending links in written form, we are calling that phishing. But when we call a target, pretending to be a service provider, and mimic phone numbers and voice, then that is what we call as phishing. Where somebody calls you, they pretend to be from a certain company that you depend on. Of course, they have done their open source intelligence, that is OSINT, and they're able to know that you require services from a certain company. So they're going to call you pretending to be from that company, and then they are going to trick you into giving them your user data and your user information. That is what we call as phishing links. And trust me, phishing links can be very convincing. People will try to be very convincing when they are calling you, and it also needs some sort of expertise level. You just don't do this because you're able to capture fake voices by just listening to the tone of that person. When somebody is not telling the entire truth, or when they are trying to lie to you, they are going to the tone is going to change a bit. But with the advanced technology, we are able to change this by mimicking phone numbers and voice. Now, another way that we can do this is pretending to be a worker and ask for company admins to reset your passwords. I'm aware that some companies have employees of up to 3,000, 5,000 employees, 6,000 employees. It would be very hard to keep a physical record, or a record of all these employees in your mind as an administrator. So people will try to pretend to be workers in that company, and they call you using they'll use the phishing technique. They're going to either call you and as a company admin, and they're going to tell you to reset their passwords. And it is very possible using this mimicking phone numbers and voice. It works perfectly. Now, another way that you could gain another person's password or access to another person's network is by going through the written post notes on desks. People are very fond of writing passwords on post notes and keeping them on their desks so that they're able to remember the next time they want to log in. Okay, so if you go to a person's office and they are just leaving notes on post notes, there are these leaflets that you buy and you're able to stick them on your computer or on your desk. If you're able to gain access to those small documents with those writings, they could be meaning a lot. You just don't know it at some times, but for a hacker this is going to be a jackpot, basically, because you could find passwords there of critical passwords. Okay, and when I'm talking about critical passwords, I mean that if that password was leaked, it's going to get tremendous effects. Now, we talked about rubber duckies and OMG cables. By the way, you guys, are you aware that these cables that we use to charge, some of them contain keyloggers? Like the OMG cable has a keylogger, and somebody could come and tell you that they need to that you could use their cable to charge your phone, and when you plug in your phone to that specific cable, they're able to collect keystrokes of whatever you're doing, and they can create a reverse shell. I mean, these things are crazy, man. And a rubber ducky works also the same. You're able to create either reverse shells, or you're able to distort that system as long as that rubber ducky is plugged in into a computer in a network, or a device in that specific network. Now, another way that we could do is by escalating privileges, or a lateral movement. And what I mean by escalating privileges is that when you gain access to one account, you try your best to move to the admin level. Remember, the admin has all the rights and the power to either delete, distort, or change these records. Okay, so if you're able to escalate your privileges to admin level, then you'll be having a sort of godly power when it comes to that specific network. Okay, lateral movement is moving from one account to another, not an admin specifically, but moving from one user account to another user account using methods that can be easily learned. If you want to learn this, a good friend of mine, Hackersploit, has done this on his channel, so you can go and look out at Hackersploit's channel and get to see some of these escalation of privileges and lateral movement. Now, let's get into another way. You could hack the password manager. Okay, now a password manager helps you to manage your passwords in all accounts, and they are stored with one inside one vault, and this vault is able to auto authenticate you. It's able to generate new passwords. It's able to change these passwords regularly, so that one password does not overstay on a certain account. Remember, if a password overstays on a certain account, then that account generally becomes weaker. So if you can steal the master password, which is the main vault that stores all these passwords, then you are able to get access to all these passwords or information to these specific accounts. Now, Another way we could do this is by getting the target's email inbox and resetting password. Another way we could do this is by getting into our target's email inbox and try to reset their passwords. We all know this. If you are logged out of your account or locked out of your account, what you basically have to do is just go and enter the specific account, click on forgot password, and the password will be reset for you using certain procedures. These days using two-factor authentication. But trust me, there are very many ways to ensure that you have reset this password. Let us talk about MFA fatigue, or multi-factor authentication fatigue. And this is whereby someone sends you you get continuous messages of reset your account has been locked, kindly reset your password, and it's going to do that until you get annoyed enough to change that password. Okay, for example, if you want to use a certain account, that account is linked to your Google email, and you're not able to gain access to that email. Now, if you really want to use that specific service, then you have to log in into your Gmail account. Okay, now by sending these notifications continuously until one is annoyed enough to change the password, this could enable a lot of people to just get into your email account, see whatever mails you've been sending, what you've been receiving, and this could be very dangerous because they're able to also gain access to other accounts. Let's say, for example, your Google Drive, where you store all your documents, all your photos. I mean, it's crazy, man. And you could also gain access to phone contacts. I mean, this thing is crazy. You just have to be very careful when you are trying to reset your password when it comes to your email. Now, another way we could do this is by guessing passwords. We could guess. All we need to do is get to know that person very well. Get to know their names, whatever schools they attended, whatever years they were there. Maybe they have a pet, maybe they have a vehicle they like so much, maybe they have someone they love so much, and this could be hints to a certain person's password. And trust me, it is very true when I'm talking about this kind of things, because people tend to use relatable things in order to create passwords. Even accounts earlier were using this kind of trick where they ask you a security question. They ask you, what is your favorite pet? What school did you attend? What and those are set as your security questions. So if somebody was smart enough to just guess your pet's name, your school attended, company that you're working for, they could create a word list by merging. Merging is whereby you go through a website, collect information from that specific website, put it in a word list, and you're able to use that word list to brute force a certain account. So these are some of the things that we should be really looking at, and more reason for us to be using password managers instead of guessing these passwords. Remember, password manager will generate a random password, and according to the password manager that you're using, they change the password to your account according to time, so that the password does not overstay when it comes to that specific account. Now, another way we could do this is by stealing your session cookie. And when I talk about cookies, I'm not talking about whatever you go to buy in the shop. A cookie is that specific token that is able to authenticate you automatically for a certain period of time when you're logged in into a certain account. You don't want to, whenever you're using your account, after a certain time it's logged out, you log in. So a session cookie comes in place of so that you're able to maintain your session up to a specific period of time. So if somebody was able to gain access to your web browser, say for example maybe you left your screen unlocked during your work, somebody came to your screen, they copied the session cookie, placed it in a USB drive, go to another machine and log into that specific account that you're using. As long as that session cookie is valid, as long as the time session for that cookie is valid, then you can gain access, you can easily gain access to another person's account. Another way we could do this is by going to our website, find its weakness, and you're able to retrieve information about other users. We talked about APIs earlier. Another way you could do it is by stealing a private key. Remember when we were talking about public and private keys? And a private key is supposed to give you access to a certain network or to certain accounts with certain information, and supposed to be short-lived. So if you're able to get the private key of a person and gain access to their account, then you're able to easily get in and do whatever you would like to with that specific user's account. Now, another way we could get into an account, and we talked about this earlier, is by using cached data. We talked about Google Chrome, and I should drive this point home. Avoid using Google Chrome. Avoid using Google Chrome, and this happens to all Google platforms. Google has a way of collecting a lot of user information, either sending it back to them through telemetry, and or storing it into on your local machine, which makes it even more vulnerable than when they are collecting it through telemetry. But it is a very Google is a very complicated platform. It's not privacy oriented. So if you want to use other browsers, use Firefox, use Brave, but not use Google Chrome. And I will make sure to do a video so that we can demonstrate how we get these Google Chrome passwords, because it's very easy. Now, another way we could gain access to accounts is by trying default passwords. Whenever people buy devices, the tendency to change passwords is very little. When a person buys a router or a switch, by default that router's password is admin. Okay, it might not apply to all of them, but the main default password is admin. So if a person just comes to your network and using default passwords, then they're able to easily get access to your network, and they can do whatever they want when it comes to that specific network or account. Now, another thing we could do is by using a LAN trap. When I was talking about network components, I showed you a picture of a trap, a LAN trap, and this is whereby you're able to connect one Ethernet cable to an Ethernet cable to one side of this trap, and another one to the other side of the trap, and you're able to basically collect whatever is going through that specific interface. And this could be very dangerous when it comes to companies or people of a high value. So try to always look at your network, try to point out some of these things. Now, if all these things don't work, if they don't work, then the other thing you could do is extortion. Okay, that's whereby you do OSINT on someone. By luck, you find something about them, and you threaten them by saying that you're going to leak whatever information you found, if they don't pay you a certain amount of money. and this happens mostly with ransomware, but it's also possible when it comes to other applications, or it's also possible when it comes to other applications and other scenarios when it comes to network access and data information. So how would we solve all this? Ensure that you're using multi-factor authentication on your accounts. Make sure you're using a password manager. Store that master password, the password manager, in a very safe place, or use what we call as a YubiKey, and this is a device that is able to authenticate you, though you have to be very cautious with your YubiKeys where you place them, because another thing would be if somebody accessed your YubiKey, then they would be it would be quite tremendous for you. So use password managers. Ensure that you change your passwords regularly. Ensure that you have different or several checkups on your systems, or your physical systems, to ensure that things like keyloggers, USB Rapada keys, LAN traps are not there, and this would just mean that you do best practices or best maintenance practices to your networks or your specific accounts. That's it for this video. Remember, I have not said that you should go and hack someone. This was just for educational purposes only. If you're caught hacking, or if you're caught accessing another person's information, please tell them you know about networking IT, and I will not be there for you. Okay, so thank you for joining me in this video, and see you in the next video. Hope you learned something. Peace.